Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
This is a fucking journey. Never forget, that this is a journey, and the purpose of this journey is X, Y, and Z. Because the second you forget that shit, you just start you focus on things that you don't need to focus on. And you just get lost, man. You get lost. And then all of a sudden your journey, which should have been a straight shot, is now this really long, arduous, circuitous path to your goal. And that's just because you forgot. I forgot why I went to graduate school. I wanted to be a professor. And it was the year off and then getting that experience that reminded me. And I kind of had to sit back and be like, shit, this is why. Now this is what I got to do. I'm 36. I'm a 36-year-old grown man. I do what the fuck I want, when the fuck I want. And if anybody doesn't like me, fuck you. You know what I mean? Saying every video of him saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. I can't stand other people sharing that video. I can't stand other people acting as though they're some sort of motivational guru. I can't stand that shit. That shit frustrates the hell out of me. You know what I mean?
What up, y'all? It's Airey Bros Radio, and this is episode 27 with Uncle Steve Vitti, Assistant Professor of Exercise Science at the University of Illinois Springfield and longtime ambassador of Quan to the Airey Bros.
Yo, I am so stoked for this Uncle Steve podcast. We get to give the masses what we've known about for all these years, that positive mental attitude, vibe, and just, being that East Coast, hey, I ain't gonna put up with shit, but I'm here to love and be an epic person and give you knowledge. Yo, we're here to give that to the world, Richie. This is our gift this week.
Yeah, we say this every week, but so stoked on this episode and the ability to bring this to the masses. We've known Uncle Steve for quite a long time now, and just to see his growth as a human being and where he's at is an amazing thing. And when we first got into it, it seemed like it was his show and he was interviewing us for a while, and then we kind of took the reins and got back into it to catch up with Steve and see what he's been up to now that he's been at the University of Illinois Springfield for a little over a year now. They're into their first semester of his second year as a professor, and to see where he was back in the Rhino days when we first met him to those interactions at the 20 and 24, to spending some time with him last year before the holidays, and then to catch up with him. It's just, man, it's like a double shot of espresso when you get on the horn with him and just feed off of that energy that he's throwing it. And definitely, I think the first time that I really started to get into the whole PMA mindset and the bad brains and John Joseph and all that stuff was through him, and also through you revisiting it with me. But it's good to talk to these people and to have them reiterate that I'm trying to be a positive person. I'm working at that, but it's something I have to do every day, because every day I'm not always positive, and that's always reassuring, because not as much now, but when I really first started to dive into this stuff and really trying to make a change in my mindset and my attitude and my belief system, I struggled with having those really great, vibrant, positive days, and then for whatever reason have that slip for a day or two and being bummed out. But then on top of being bummed out that I'm being bummed out and that I'm not being positive, or I didn't have a positive interaction with that person, and always taking that on as my own, and not being aware or acknowledging, well, maybe that is you're picking up on someone else's bad hoorah, and you're feeding off of that. Like, I can't always come into a room and be the bright shining star that's gonna just pick up the mood of everyone. Like, sometimes there's shit that's in that room, and no matter how bright and positive I am, if I don't get out of that situation, that might bring me down. So to hear Uncle Steve with going through graduate school and getting his master's, and how everything was, PMA all day through his undergrad, and then getting into his master's and kind of getting a dick punch with how much harder it was. And to hear that, him struggling with that stuff, it's just, those sorts of things are reassuring to me. But yeah, he gets into it, and he's got there's some deep cuts and some nuggets and some gems in there that, he popped us. There's shit that I want to write down and, put on a t-shirt, because it's just,
never forget.
Never forget. That's right.
Never forget the purpose, never forget the reason, never forget. And just, talking to Uncle Steve, being on my undergrad now, and talking to him about going to college, and, that was one thing he gave to me. He said that was the theme of the podcast, and when you're in college and you're in the muck of it, never forget, and don't worry about next year or the year after how long it's going to take. You got so much work you got to do right now. Never forget. And listening to that podcast today on the way over here, just to kind of brush myself up and be ready for this podcast, man, this is gold. You guys are getting this for free. Be lucky, because this is gold.
Yeah, and I think the saying is, when you mentioned being in the muck, I think the saying is, I think the first time I heard it was through Duncan Trussell, and it's no mud, no lotus. Without the mud and the muck, there's no lotus flower. And so those two things go hand in hand. And, whether it's talking with Matt Cooper or, speaking and learning from Kyle and some of the other guests that we've had on, those two things have to go hand in hand. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And it's not always puppy dogs and ice cream and rainbows and unicorns. And for every high, there's a low. And the idea with the work that we're doing and learning from other people is that there's going to be highs and lows and peaks and valleys. The idea is to minimize, those situations and trying to keep them much more level. And that's where the work comes in, and doing the work, and talking and communicating with other people and sharing. And, I go back to this, I say it all the time, when everybody does better, and we've got to lift each other up. And we get a lot of that together, where there's some times where you're down and I'm up, and I got to lift you up, and vice versa. There's been plenty of times where I'm in the muck, and you're there to remind me that, this is only temporary. This whole situation is temporary. And so you got to get through it. You got to sit with it. You got to breathe into it. You got to lean the fuck into it. And tomorrow's a new day. And, a week or two ago, I put those affirmations on the refrigerator, and before I get out of bed, I say those, and I have them memorized now. But when I'm filling up my water bottle, I look at them too, and I say those. And it's all about doing the work. And Uncle Steve is always a great reminder of that for me. And so although we don't, and we said it in this podcast, we got to do this shit more often. And, we just got done talking about it. Like, we didn't even really get into being a professor and what he's into. And we certainly didn't, get into him being a vegan. And there's so much other things that we need to catch up with him about. And it's going to be great to have him on for another episode. And, it was great to see him last Christmas. So maybe we can have another Christmas phone call or a holiday phone call. But, man, just love everything that Uncle Steve is about, his vibe, his energy. And I'm trying to be that peaceful warrior, and we talk about that with Drew, and it's a good reminder. It's okay to try to be zen and be that, but also know that sometimes you got to check a motherfucker.
100. And one thing I was thinking as you were just saying what you were saying is, Uncle Steve, not only is he a friend, not only do we call him Uncle Steve because he has that cool Uncle Wisdom. He's someone I look up to and someone I strive to be like in certain aspects of my life. And, you know, as he says, we're not perfect. It's not always going to be the best, but, you know, you keep your essence, who you are, and you try to get through and be a good person. Rule number 1, be cool, man. Rule number 1, be cool. And he says that in the podcast. It's just, we're all in this together, and the better that I can be, the better it's going to be for you. And the better you can be, the better it's going to be vice versa. So, yeah, man. You ready to give it to him, Richie Rich?
Yeah, one last thing, though, before we get into that is that, you know, Uncle Steve asked both of us in the beginning of the conversation, like, what motivates us or what inspires us. And for a while in my life, you know, I hear people say, oh, you're an inspiration, you know, and I'm like, I just ran a 100-mile race. It's not really that big deal. It's better than working. It beats working, you know. So he asked us what inspires us, and almost in unison at the same time, we said, you know, you inspire us, because Steve is a perfect example of, if you put your mind to doing something that you want to do and you're passionate about doing it, you're going to get that shit done. So yeah, Uncle Steve is a huge inspiration to me, and you know, what he's done motivates me and inspires me, and I hope that this conversation motivates you, inspires you, brings you a couple laughs, and gives you a little bit more insight as to who Steve Vitti, or Dr. Steve Vitti, PhD, Springfield College. Shout out to Springfield College. I just hope that you guys get as much out of this as Jimmy and I did, right?
100. Couldn't have said it any better. Uncle Steve, that's where we get better from most from. And, you know, there's been times in my life where just knowing that he's out there doing his thing keeps me going. So listen to this podcast. It's gonna be a double shot of espresso, like Richie said.
It's espresso. There's no X. Love you more.
I'm working on my accent just like my Uncle Steve is and talks about in the episode.
Yo, this is episode 27 with Steve Vitti. This is Airey Bros Radio. Much love. Namaste from the boys of 1512.
So how's life been treating you, Uncle Steve? What's the summer been like?
Life's always good. I had the summer off, so I traveled. I traveled a lot this summer. Went to a lot of places. Saw a lot of people. It was terrific. It was really, really, really good. So I can't complain. How about you guys? What'd you do all summer?
We're right in the thick of it right now. We got Leadville 100 coming up on Saturday and Sunday, so Jimmy and I are going to be doing some crewing and pacing for some of my clients.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, how's the business going? Would you consider that a business? It is a business, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't worked a real job since October, so I guess it's going all right.
Of course, man. Living the dream. That's terrific. Terrific.
Trying. Yo, I got a quick before we get too deep into it. I got a story from the last time we when we hung out before Christmas. Remember we were discussing the YOLO house that you guys came to before the mariachi concert back a couple years ago?
I do.
We told that story about that lovely individual.
Yes, I do.
So literally, as soon as we crossed the Pennsylvania into New Jersey border, I opened up my Bumble app, and within 3 swipes, that individual popped up on Bumble. So I dove in and I swiped right just to have a little fun. And within 10 minutes of that, I had a message and a response from that individual.
But did you go visit the individual?
Fuck no.
You did the right thing.
I don't know, man. I say he shouldn't have engaged at all, but that's just me. But I think because we were talking about it at your place, we manifested it.
Man is inquisitive, you know? I can't blame him. for swiping. But yeah, this person sounds like a lunatic. And hopefully, this person never listens to this podcast. And if this person does listen to this podcast, hopefully this person has no way of contacting me or finding me.
You might get a stop letter in your mailbox.
Oh man, it's just another great story in the journey, man.
100%.
Hey, what are your days looking like currently? What are the Airey brothers doing?
Right now we're doing a lot of stuff in the studio because we've got probably 6 or 7 episodes pre-recorded that are just kind of waiting in the tank. So we've got to do the editing on those to get the ums and the likes and the you knows and all those kind of subtle filler words when you're pausing to try to gather your thoughts. So we're just going in and doing those, but training, trying to get in the mountains once or twice a week, and just living, man. Just living the high life here in the great state of Colorado, enjoying all the things that we have access to that not everyone does.
A little bit.
Yeah, it sounds terrific. Just out of curiosity, how long does it take you to go through a single episode and kind of edit it and post it?
It doesn't take us. At first, we were a little overboard with the editing, and that you take certain things out and it takes away from the conversation. So now if there's gaps in between where there's an or a like, we'll go in and pull those out. But otherwise we try to leave it as intact as possible. So
right.
I'd say, if an episode's an hour, just because you're listening and pulling as you go, it probably takes anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. And then Jimmy pulls clips, audio clips, and we put some things together for social media and stuff like that.
So you have to go through and listen to everything.
Unfortunately.
Oh, it sounds awful.
It is when you hate the sound of your own voice. It's pretty awful.
Oh man, I'm currently going through something. Where I absolutely hate the sound of my voice. I absolutely hate my accent or dialect, whatever you want to call it. I really, really hate it. And I'm in the process of flipping one of my classes, so I have to listen to my lectures and edit them, make sure the volume's correct, so forth and so on. And it makes me cringe listening to my own voice. Makes me cringe.
Well, Uncle Steve, if it makes you feel any better, I freaking love your voice. I think it's part of your character, part of the patois that you put out there into the world. So don't worry about it. The fans love it.
Prince James, what are you doing? What are your days looking like currently?
I'm at work in the morning, and then
Doing what?
I'm working at Natural Grocers right now, shipping and receiving. Trying to change that, but I got school starting up here next week, and when I'm not, I do you. And besides that, just in the studio training and just having some fun.
Yeah, that's what's up. Rich, any races lined up, or are you just focused on coaching right now?
I do a little bit of racing. I've done some shorter trail races, and there's another one next weekend that I'm going to do, and I think the following week or the week after that is another short one, like 10K. And then I think what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to do another 24-hour race at the middle of December in Arizona. There's a 24-hour race on a track that's just been kind of speaking to me lately, so I think that's what the plan is. I've been focusing on my athletes throughout the summer and crewing and pacing at certain events. I've got another one in Michigan that I'm going to be doing at the end of September with an athlete. And then that'll give me the fall to kind of really focus on myself and this 24-hour endeavor.
That's awesome. How involved are you with your athletes? Like, how often do you communicate with them? For how long? So forth and so on.
It varies from athlete to athlete. I have some that are super into it, and I talk to either on the phone or via text multiple times a week. And then there's some others that I have to kind of track down weekly to get them to fill out their training logs and see how they're doing. So it varies from client to client. Like I said, some are really into it and they want to give me all the information, all their feedback from their training. They'll check in, day to day in terms of how their workouts went. And those tend to be the ones that seem to have the most success with their races. But like I said, it varies. I prefer the more contact, the better. I give them the open door policy that my phone is always on and they can contact me whenever. Some of them take advantage of it, some of them don't. And that's all part of the process of building the business and making it the way that you want it in terms of your coaching philosophy and style and things like that. It's for me now. It's more than just the workouts and the physiology and the science behind the workouts. I want people focusing more on their diet and their strength components of things and working in and meditating and doing those sorts of things. Especially if you're running a 100-mile race, you should probably be practicing having some sort of meditative practice just so you can better deal with some of those situations when they arise in a 100-mile race, be it bonking or feeling down from lack of calories or just the soreness that comes with it after 40, 50, 60 miles that you're going to have to deal with. I think that's something that I would encourage most endurance athletes to kind of tap into and work on.
That's interesting that you kind of approach coaching from a holistic perspective, whereas a running coach usually just focuses on the running only, right? That's pretty interesting stuff. Do you use a web-based fitness tracker or workout tracker like Strava or something else? I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, everyone uses either Strava or Training Peaks, but I do everything through Google and Google Docs and Google Drive, so that we have like a working document where week to week I put in their workouts, and then they have the cells and the areas to give the feedback, put in their distance, their time, their pace, their heart rate. Again, it varies from client to client. The ones that have the most success are the ones that are tracking all that sort of information and buying into everything that I'm having them do. So, but yeah, that's kind of just been my evolution as a coach in terms of, and as an athlete. I wasn't always into meditation and those sorts of things, or even giving a damn about how I was eating. That's all kind of come in the process of growing and becoming a more more in-depth and mature human being. All those things are factors, and you've got to be working in as much as you're working out. And if you're just working out, kind of setting yourself up for some sort of injury or burnout down the road. So I feel like coming at it from all these different angles is just going to help the athlete better achieve their goals and prolong their career. Because for me, at the end of the day, it's a long game, and I want these sorts of things to be a lifelong practice. I don't necessarily know if I want to be that 80-year-old guy that's on the starting line at a race that's winning his age group because there's no one else in the age group.
Right.
But I want people to have the skill set to be able to do that if that's what they choose to do.
That's awesome, man. So you have no interests outside of running, right? It's running and fitness in general, but nothing outside of that, right?
Vagina.
Bumble. How's the Bumble app treating you these days?
He's crushing it, bro. He's fun. 2 days a week, I get the house to myself, bro. He's crushing it. He gives me my alone time, so I appreciate the shit out of Bundr, Tinder, Hinge, whatever else he's on doing his dark arts. I appreciate it.
Damn, that is terrific. There's you're both benefiting from Bumble. That's great to hear. That's really great to hear, man.
Dude, last night I got out of the shower and I was combing my hair.
He had pants on.
I was going to the grocery store. He's like, "We got a Tinder date tonight?"
Oh man. I have so many questions. Okay, Prince James.
Yes, sir.
Are you running still?
I am, yeah.
Are you rolling at all?
No, man, I feel like I get asked this question more and more frequently as the weeks go on. I'm trying to make that happen sooner than later. I got to put a deadline on it.
All right, so a couple of questions. I'm going to start off with the first and probably the most important, and I believe we discussed this already, but I think the world needs to know why. What is your beef with the gi? What is your beef with the gi, Prince James?
All right, so I wouldn't say it's a beef, but just to give a little background for everyone who doesn't know, I started off wrestling, at a young age, so it's just a lot more similar with no gi, not having someone being able to hold on to me and not being able to, roll my wrist and get out or use head position or hand fighting to get out. There's a little bit more complication in the gi. Gi tends to slow things down. It's not that I'm opposed to training the gi. I have trained in the gi. I got my blue belt in the gi. I'll definitely train in the gi again. But given the option to do no gi, I'm going to do no gi all day because it feels more comfortable. That said, I think there are benefits to training in the gi. It's going to slow you down. It's going to make you learn the finer details, maybe against your will, whereas in no gi, you can get away without learning those finer details. So I do see the benefits, and I will put a gi on again for sure, but it's not if I have the option of gi or no gi, I'm going no gi.
Right on. All right, that's a good answer. And question for both of you: How do you balance your interests? I mean, so say like for Rich, you run, you lift. Prince James, you could run, you could lift, you could roll. So like I'm asking you because like I always feel as though I'm being pulled in different directions, and I eventually succumb to option paralysis or decision fatigue because I love Jiu Jitsu. It's like I'm absolutely obsessed, but I know I have to lift and I know I have to do some sort of cardiovascular exercise outside of it. And there are times where I'm just like, fuck, I don't know how to balance this, I usually just shoot from the hip, like, all right, I'm going to do this today and that's it. But like with jiu-jitsu, it's scheduled, right? Like running and strength training, you can go to the gym anytime you want, right? But jiu-jitsu is like, fuck you, this is what you're going to do, and this is when you're going to do it. So how do you balance that, both of you? I'm looking for answers here, some advice.
So I think it goes back to what I'm training for at that time, right? If I'm training for a jiu-jitsu competition, there's definitely going to be more jiu-jitsu focus. Where I am right now, I pretty much I'm not trained for anything, so I have the option to, if I want to go run today, go run. If I want to throw the kettlebells around, go do that, whatever. Right now, I'm just doing it based on feel and what I want to do that day. But for me, it's always been balance. When I got hurt in jiu-jitsu, it was because there was nothing else in my life. It was 100% jiu-jitsu all in, and there were so many signs of being burned out, fatigued, injured that were ignored because I was chasing that brass ring of getting better, getting the brown belt, stuff like that. But when I lose sight of the feedback that my body's given me, that's when all the crisis and all the issues happen. For me, because grew up wrestling, grew up running pretty much hand in hand, I always do better when I have a little bit more balance and a little sprinkle of everything that I enjoy, opposed to just like trying to do one thing.
Yeah, that's a practice that's easier said than done, right? It's something that's, I feel like it's universally known and accepted, but it takes like a Jedi to really implement that kind of that thought, that practice into one's life, and man, there were times I still can't. I'll be straight up honest with you. Like jiu-jitsu has really like made me realize how flawed I am. Not just like physically, but mentally. It's wild, man. It's wild. Jiu-jitsu, like you get smoked by somebody who's like, I don't know, 20 pounds lighter than you, and how you deal with certain situations. It defines your game ultimately. And I'm like, every time I go to train, I roll. Like since since practicing jiu-jitsu, I no longer have an ego. At least on the mat, I don't. And I mean, it's just so it's been wonderful. But man, I can't seem to. I don't have that balance. I don't have that balance. Like, I'm obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and I got to do jiu-jitsu. And I mean, even if I'm hurt, I always feel like, fuck, if I miss out today, I'm not going to be as good. I'm going to fall behind other white belts or something like that. That's crazy, man. I respect the both of you. You both inspire the shit out of me. Really, I honestly do. I don't know where your motivation comes from.
People like you, Uncle Steve, we tap into that vibe, dog.
Man, I respect that, but man, there are times where I'm just like, man, I'm like defeated sometimes, and that's because I don't have that balance, man. It's one or the other, and I'm afraid because now I'm going into the semester, and again, I'm an extremist in all that I do. Of course, not I don't do drugs, and I'm not in a fundamental religious extremist, but like, if I do one thing, I have to like dedicate all of my time and my attention to it. So like when this semester comes in, I'm really like honed in on like being the best teacher I possibly could be, implementing the best practices that I can. And then there's jiu-jitsu, like my obsession. Like I have to go every day. I have to go to both classes, and it's balance, man. Balance is tough, Balance is tough.
How many days a week are you training right now?
Between 4 and 5.
And you're doing what? Did you say you're going twice a day or once a day?
So it's once a day, but there are 2 classes. Yesterday I only went for 1 class because I didn't go to the gym earlier on. But I'll usually stay for both classes. So today I have open mat in a little while. Open mats from 6 to 7, and then there's no gi from 7 to 8. I usually just skip no gi, but some of the guys at the academy suggested that I start going to no gi class, as it would kind of help with my gi game. So I've been going to no gi, but yeah, I usually go for both classes, so for 2 hours.
So, question I have for you, and this is just based on my experience and things that have arose and problems I've had in jiu-jitsu. How much of you being obsessed with it is just needing to get that next level belt because that's on the horizon, and how much of it is the peer pressure of the people that you train with in going those extra sessions, or maybe not taking a day to go run and going to jiu-jitsu instead?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with the latter and then go to the former. I mean, I get what you're saying, but like, what's great is I'm 36, a 36-year-old grown man. Like, I do what the fuck I want, when the fuck I want, and if anybody doesn't like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Respect. Yeah. So like, I do what I want, and the guys, I have a really great academy, man. Shout out to Gracie Baja in Springfield. Like, the guys there are so great. So I don't really feel pressured by anyone. And I don't feel pressured, or I don't feel motivated by a belt. I'm currently I've been training since November, and I'm still a white belt, and I love being a white belt because there's no expectations, But I know that the blue belt is coming soon, and in fact, I don't want the blue belt. I want to be a white belt for a while because I want to be the best blue belt that I possibly can be, for myself. So as a white belt, I reach out to my friends. They reached out to Roddy. Shout out to Roddy, Super Dave, all my jiu-jitsu friends, and ask them hey, what would you recommend a white belt do? And it's just about drilling, drill, spar. So I'm trying to do all of that to be the best white belt. So going into a blue belt, I don't feel inadequate. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So I'm not chasing the belt. I'm just trying. If I'm going to do something and invest my time and my money in, I want to, again, I want to milk it for what it's worth, man. I want the juice to be worth the squeeze, and I want to fucking squeeze, I want to squeeze everything out of it that I possibly can. And the only way I see fit to do that is to go anytime I possibly can and, learn.
Is it fun?
It's a blast. Again, like thank goodness, I no longer have an ego. Like even when I lose, and which is often, it's a learning opportunity. You know, it's a teaching moment. It's fantastic, man. It's win or lose. That's what's great about jiu-jitsu, man. Win or lose, you learn. You know, win or lose, you win. You know, it's the best. It's the absolute best. And I think that's what's also like very, very. I hate saying addictive because you know there's negative connotation with addiction, but that's what makes it so much fun. You know, and it makes me want to go there every single class, and I look forward to. You know, my whole entire life. If it's not physiology, it's jiu-jitsu. Like if I eat, I'll turn on YouTube and I'll just watch like IBJJF matches or you know instructional videos and wild shit, man.
Well,
my whole entire life.
I think if it's fun, keep doing what you're doing. You know, as long as you're being healthy and your body feels good and you're having fun and you're totally engrossed in it and enjoying it and loving the process of learning, keep doing that and don't stress about not doing other things. You know, I think supplemental strength training can be good for just for your ability to grip onto things and have better leverage on people. It's also good for joint health and stuff like that, where the joints can take a beating. But I mean, I think that there are lots of things that you can do in a short amount of time that's going to give you that quick hit of strength that you need for your joints and joint health, so that you can practice 4 or 5 days a week and not have to stress out about thinking that you're not balanced or that you're you're missing out on things in terms of other avenues of maybe health and wellness or fitness.
Yeah, I have to put that in my head, man. Sometimes I forget, you know. Sometimes I feel like I have to juggle more than I have to. And it really is. It's an unnecessary burden I place on myself. It's wild. But, you know, c'est la vie, man. You know, c'est la vie.
YOLO.
So, YOLO. So what keeps you all motivated? What keeps you motivated?
People. I mean, you know, people like you, people like some of the other followers that are doing the Airey Bros Daily Challenge. It started off as just something Jimmy and I did to challenge ourselves in a bit of a transition period, and then little by little, more and more people are jumping in and doing it. And there's some days where you definitely put it off till the end of the day and you're not wanting to do it, but you know that there's 10, 15, 20 other people that are around doing it, and they're just waiting to see your post. So that, you know, that can be motivating. Sometimes, though, you know, you don't have the motivation, and that's where being a lifelong athlete comes in, is because sometimes you're not motivated, but you can always be dedicated.
Yeah.
To be honest, Uncle Steve, I would say what keeps me motivated and keeps me in motion and just training, it all comes back to peace of mind and just being able to get that peace of mind through movement and breath.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, and now more than ever, going out and running in the mountains for 4, 5, 6 hours is just as much of a spiritual practice as it is an athletic endeavor. You know, going out and hanging out and being out there all day and hugging some trees and running up some mountains and stuff like that. That's where you get your fix in, and it doesn't. You know, like I said before, I want this to be a lifelong practice. Even if I'm not racing, I still want to have the ability to be strong enough and fit enough to go out and, you know, run up a mountain and go to 14,000 feet and come back down in a reasonable time, where, you know, sometimes it takes people 8 to 12 hours to do it, and I can get up and down in under 3 hours.
Yeah, it really is about longevity, isn't it? You know?
Yeah,
really
you know,
is.
and I think that's probably another motivator for Jimmy and I, is just our dad was super into racing and fitness and training and all that stuff, and he got a couple injuries and completely up and stopped doing it, and now he is pretty inactive, and I think that's something that motivates. I know it motivates me. I don't want to speak for Jimmy, but there's a lot of things that I want to try to avoid ending up like, and one of those is being a sedentary person. I think the minute you stop moving, the minute you stop exercising and stuff, that's where things start to fall apart and the wheels start coming off. So my goal is to keep my meat vehicle as healthy and strong and fit as I possibly can until the day they put me in the box.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be a handsome corpse of meat vehicle. You guys stretch at all?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on the reg.
What's the stretching routine look like? I know this is supposed to be like a podcast, but now it's just kind of like.
We'll get to it. Don't even worry. We got our Uncle Steve on the phone. It's all good. But stretching routine for me, it's different. I do a lot of, postural exercises, breathing into trying to keep my spine nice and long, a lot of mobility stuff, and then just, some basic yoga movements, just following my breath to it. But, whether it be that or sitting in a lotus for a little bit, I try to do a little bit of something every day. And I was just thinking about it the other day. I think it was like 2008. I saw a video of Airey Bros talking about like sitting in the lotus position for 10 minutes a day, and the only way you can get a 10-pointed black belt is to have a double lotus. And now I can sit in double lotus, but it was like a 10-year process of just a little bit each day. So something like that, when you can see the payoff in the long run, is so worth it. Even though at one point, you never saw the end of it. To me, that's worth it in gold.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something I lack, man. Stretching. I sit all day working, and then I go to Jiu Jitsu, and then I lift, and then I go back home, and I work all day, so I'm stuck in a fucking chair, and my hip flexors are just tight, man. It's wild.
Check out Five Parks Yoga on YouTube. She's got
5 Parks Yoga?
Yeah, she's got probably 50 or 60, if not more, yoga routines on there for, there's some that are shorter and focused specifically on certain body parts, shoulders or hips. And then she's got some longer, like vinyasa flows and stuff like that. And I try to do it once a week. Sometimes if I'm on it, I'll do it more throughout the week. I'm trying to incorporate that more into the practice now. But yeah, I think just having the ability to, roll out your mat and pop it up on YouTube and do it in your living room or wherever, rather than having to spend, $150 to go to a yoga studio. She guides you through everything like it's a regular yoga class. So, and it's just one of those things where I know if I set that side of time for that hour, I'm going to get it done.
How many days a week?
Right now, it's only once a week. I go in and out of it depending on where I'm at in my life. There have been times where I practice yoga 3 or 4 times a week, and then there's other times where I don't do it at all. And now I'm trying to make sure it's part of my weekly routine. So right now I'm at 1 day a week and hope to get to 2 or 3 times a week, because I haven't been doing much in the gym or going to the gym. A lot of what I've been doing lately has just been body weight stuff and calisthenics and that sort of stuff, and I've been having fun with that. And I've been running a lot more than what I was a couple years ago. So
really?
Yeah. I mean before 2014, I was doing a lot more strength stuff and I wasn't running as much. And then when I got ready for that first year in Leadville, I was putting on the miles. And right now it's just about what is fun for me. So I haven't found the gym that I'm super stoked on to go to on a regular basis. So I do my thing. I go to the park and do some stuff, or as long as you have a pull-up bar, you're good to go. I mean, if there was only one upper body strength movement that I would recommend for anyone, it would be pull-ups. If I could go back and tell my 14-year-old self, give him one tip, it would be to go on and be on the pull-up bar every day.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll agree with the upper body exercise recommendation for sure. Pull-ups, for sure. You know what I've been loving lately, and I have to just psych myself out to go. But leg day, I love squats, man. I love how I feel after squats specifically. You know, you feel like a god. You know, man, squat and a deadlift. Like I leave that gym and I must look like I think I'm like the Hulk or something like that, man. It's wild.
Yeah, you've
really
been
is.
listening to too much Joe Rogan, dog.
Listen, I don't listen to Joe Rogan as much anymore, but I'll tell you what.
Have you seen him with his shirt off?
Yeah, I mean, Prince James, you understand how ridiculous that sounded, right?
Bro,
how long? What was that? How long ago was that?
That was 2011 when we reconnected, and you know what? I don't
No,
care,
that was
bro.
2012.
No, it was
the year that
2011.
they canceled it.
All right.
No, wait. Oh, that was the year they canceled it.
Yeah.
That's when he said it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever,
Okay,
dude.
no.
I don't even care. I own my Gold Dust, Uncle Steve. Whatever, man. Joe Rogan's jacked as shit. I used to get... Joe Rogan is just like Post Malone, you know. For so long, people would give me shit for listening to Joe Rogan, and then they all came around. It was like, you know what? He's got a good show. And it's the same thing with Post Malone. They see the face tattoos, they think he sucks, and then they listen to a song, and then they listen to two, and then I get a text message. Oh, you know what? Post Malone ain't that bad.
Yo, I love you, Prince James, but Post Malone sucks. I heard a lot of that shit is straight garbage. But I'll tell you what, man, because I can't. I have a hard time like boning on somebody or hating on something without either listening to their music or like, you know, like reading an interview or watching an interview with them. You know, like I always want to make sure that like there's substance to my word. You know, that if somebody calls me out, I could say, well, X, Y, and Z. And so in my Post Malone journey, shortly after I realized his music sucked, I'm like, man, like, what is this dude about? And I watched like 2 interviews, and dude actually seems kind of cool. Not only does he seem kind of cool, the dude listens to like old punk rock and hardcore music, and I'm like, holy fuck, man. Like, I could see myself hanging out with Post Malone for sure, but I could never see myself listening to his music.
Yo, wait till he puts an acoustic album out, bro. You're gonna be changing up your whole story, because it's coming.
Oh, no. Now, I saw some acoustic stuff he did, and I'm like, wow, this shit really sucks. Like, I can't get into this shit.
Yo, and just in my defense, let me just say, Post Malone is not rap. Post Malone is pop music.
Oh, 100%. But that's the thing, like I don't mind pop music, man. You know, pop music has its place and its time, but like it's not even like, I don't know. It's not even like good pop music, man.
See, this is why I love talking to my Uncle Steve, because you always let me know when I disagree, that shit sucks, but you're still my boy. This is why I love having these conversations.
It's funny because when I said it sucked, you told me I was an asshole.
Yeah, but you like Post Malone, so I don't want to hear it, dude.
Yeah, man. Listen, it's important, man, especially in like these times. Like, we should be able to talk about things and disagree without being at odds with each other. You know what I mean? Like, I should be able to tell you that Post Malone sucks, even though like I really, really want to be like objectively speaking, Post Malone sucks. Like, I can't say that. But even if I'm like, hey, you know, I think he's garbage. Like, I think it's cool that you could be like, hey, man, I respect that. I still like him. And the same thing with like Joe Rogan the shirtless comment, and it came like out of left field. You know what I mean?
No, you all were shit talking Joe Rogan. I don't even want to hear it. I gotta stand up for my man Joe right now.
Yo, listen, man. I'm a believer in Joe Rogan. I think the man should be the arbiter of the people. You know, I think he's right on, man. I think his assessment of himself and his assessment of a lot of things, I agree with a lot of it. I agree with an awful lot of it.
Did you see that there's a petition going around to have him be the moderator for the 2020 debates?
I would love that. I mean, he almost is in a way. He already had Bernie Sanders on. He had Yang on. You know, like, he's asking these people the right questions too. And first of all, Democratic debates. And I'm not gonna get into politics. Just talking about the debate. Like, how fucking silly are they? Like, they have an audience. You know what I mean? How silly is that shit? It's fucking ridiculous. I wonder what Joe Rogan thinks about that.
All right, Uncle
man.
Steve. Just get back on topic a little bit. I appreciate the Uncle Steve radio show. I really do. But tell people a little background how we met you. I believe we met you at the end of 2005 at Rhino MMA. At the time I met you, I believe you had no ambition to ever go back to school. I believe you might have had like a year or two at OCC. I'm not 100%, but I distinctly remember you having a conversation with someone at the time pretty much saying like school wasn't your thing and you would never go back to school, it was just not on your path. And then we lost connection along the way, and then because of social media we were able to reconnect. And when we reconnected, you were, I believe, still doing your undergrad, but going to school, and you kind of took that path and got your black belt in education and got your doctorate. Just tell people a little bit about your journey and what made you go back to school, and how you went from a guy who was never going to go back to school to a guy who's actually teaching on the college level right now.
Yeah. So you were correct in your memory. There was, when we had first linked up, which was the end of 2005 at Rhino, I had absolutely no intention of going back to school, even though I took a few semesters at OCC. And I think a lot of that has to do with, with my maturity at the time, or really anybody's maturity. Somebody that young who doesn't know exactly what they want to do, going to school is such a waste of time and money. Like, money is one thing, like you could always get money back, but time is just this linear, non-renewable commodity, and it's just fucked that people waste their time. And that's what I did. I wasted my time and my money, and I'm like, school's not for me. But really, it's school. It's not that school wasn't for me. It's just that I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. Fast forward to around, around 2000, whatever the hell it was. I don't even remember. My mom had gotten sick, and my mom died of cancer. And at the time, I was really into exercise, specifically exercise as this kind of like non-pharmacological intervention, right? We could use exercise to prevent disease as opposed to, using exercise to become a better athlete. And I was interested in that, and my mom dying kind of catalyzed this interest in really like the clinical aspects or the application of exercise. So kind of with that, I ended up moving to Connecticut to complete my undergraduate degree, which was in exercise science. And then along the way, I had a professor who was just, he was just like really, really smart. And he always took the time to talk to me, and I would go down to his office and we would shoot the shit about science, and I loved it. He really, really made me interested in the physiology, right? The deep science behind what it is that we're learning, because exercise science is very broad, right? Exercise science could be, it could be, training, right? Learning how to, being a strength and conditioning coach, or it could be, you could be an athletic trainer with an exercise science degree. But I was really interested in the physiological aspects of exercise science. And this professor, just kind of I don't know, he kind of nurtured that. And he would always be like, check this out. And we would have these discussions. And then he went to Springfield College and suggested that I check out Springfield College's program. I checked out their program. One thing led to another. I got into their program, and then I completed my master's and my PhD there. And it was a very long, arduous journey. But man, I got the best gig in the world. Man. I got the best life in the world. No doubt about it, man. But yeah, that's my journey, man. That is my journey. And if I could give any advice to anybody ever listening to this who thinks that school isn't their thing, maybe it's just that they don't know what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be a mechanic, that's cool. But if you don't know what you want to do, you shouldn't say school's not your thing, because school just might be the avenue you need to do what you want to do for the rest of your life and be happy doing it,
So, Doran, how long did that whole journey take you?
Fucking forever. No, man. The journey in its entirety, really. I moved in 2009 and started. No, I moved in 2009. Really, December 2008. Started at Central Connecticut State University in 2009, and then I finally got my PhD in 2017. So from soup to nuts. I didn't have all that much to do at Central Connecticut. I had taken courses again at Ocean County College. So, a lot of my credits transferred over there, but graduate school took forever. But yeah, it took me like 8 years to do.
Yeah, so
and,
sorry.
What's up?
So throughout that 8 years, that's a long time, almost a decade. Just describe some of the ups and downs and the process of just not worrying about this is going to take this long and just focusing on the task at hand during that semester and not worrying about all the years you had ahead of you.
Yeah, great. That's a great question. I want to tell you that. It was like, I loved every second of it, and I want to tell you that, when times were tough, it came easy because I was super passionate about it, but I'd be lying to you. The reality is, like, I never projected. I was never like, oh, fuck, it's going to take me 6 more years, 4 more years. I was never like that because I was I was inundated with work, And at the end, so I believe it was 2014. The fall of 2014 began my downward spiral. I had about a nervous breakdown then because graduate school, I was woefully unprepared for graduate school. I went from undergraduate being so easy for me. Like I would study an hour and I would understand everything. I would study an hour the day before the exam, and I would ace these like super tough exams. And I always chalked it up to me being like, I love physiology. It came easy to me, and that's why I was doing so well. And then graduate school came, and I just adopted really poor practices, and when I figured they would transfer over, and they didn't. Right? I went from getting A's very easily in undergraduate to getting like B's, working my ass off in graduate school, and then I kind of I got inside my own head, and I felt I wasn't I was just mired with inadequacies that I didn't belong there, and then it just kind of like spiraled down, and then I had to take a year off. So I took an entire year off, and thankfully, a really dear friend of mine was friends with my old professor who was at Central Connecticut, and they talked, and this professor was like, "Hey, tell Steve that I'm going on sabbatical for a semester and ask if he would be interested in teaching some of my classes." So one thing led to another. I took a year off from school and I taught, and then it was just perfect, right? The opportunity was like serendipitous that this was presented to me at this time, because I ended up teaching and realizing how much I loved it, and that all of this was worth it. And that I just really had to fix myself, I really needed to fix myself, and I just didn't pay any attention to myself or my well-being. So I take a year off. It was great, and then I went back, and there were a lot of downs, man. It was a very undulating experience, emotionally undulating experience. There were a lot of low points. It was very stressful. And I can't say there were any like really super high points. Graduate school is graduate school. You do work, you do some research. Research is done and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting experience. But the high of the highs, man, was definitely when I was done. Because now I have a permit to do whatever I want to do, however I want to do it. Within reason, of course. I work for somebody. I work for an institution, but I'm my own boss. I could teach any class I want to, or I could teach a class however I want to. You know what I mean? But again, to kind of answer your question, like the highs and the lows, there were a lot of lows, man. It's tough. It's stressful. You don't know how you're going to finish everything, complete everything, but you do it. You do it. Graduate school, it teaches you a lot. It's the importance of time management, the importance of your self well-being, and the importance of tenacity, man. Sometimes you just gotta fucking do it. Just put your head down and go. That's it.
And so when you were having these lower points in grad school, was your former professor from Central, was he someone you kind of reached out to and would go to him with some of the things that you were going through, or did you guys kind of not have as much communication once you got to Springfield?
No, we communicated. We still do. It's more spotty than not. But no, I have a great support system. I really do. I had my father, who was great, my sister, who's great, my partner Airey, who's just the best. But the problem was it was with me. And there's nothing. I have a hard time talking to people because I know what the issue is, but I have to figure shit out myself. So somebody could tell me, hey, everything is going to be okay. You're going to do just fine. Just don't fucking tell me something I already know. I don't want to hear it because that's going to make me more mad, and that's going to sink me further down into whatever it is I'm in. What I need to do is kind of step outside of myself and assess the situation and figure out how to deal with shit on my own. So I really didn't reach out to anybody, and I still don't, man. I still don't. But I know that I need to do something. I need to do something to change it. Graduate school that helped me do that. It helped me realize that, man. I really have to work on myself, and crazy. But I didn't reach out to him, no, man. I really don't reach out to anybody when I'm going through shit. I just kind of suffer in silence, and I don't recommend that at all. At all.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's awful, man. It really is. It's awful. But I'm as I mature, right, as we were talking about before, the logical progression in life is to mature and to make better decisions about one's health. And I started talking to somebody a few months ago, and it's been helping. And I talk about things with Airey more, and it helps out an awful lot. And you can't be too proud. You can't be too proud. Sometimes you need help, and that's why your friends and your family are there. They're there to help. Talk about shit, iron shit out.
Yeah. Hell yeah. When you took that year off and you were asked to teach, before you taught, had you thought of being a college professor? Was that something that came up?
Yeah, no, that was great question. Sorry to cut you off, but that was the end goal, man. You listen, when you're mired in self-doubt and you're just you're plagued with these neuroses, like you forget the end goal, man. You forget shit. You're so stuck in the moment. You're so fixated on all this negative shit that you forget why you're there. You forget why you're doing things. And it's the same thing like when we were talking about Jiu Jitsu. Like, people are focused on belts. Motherfucker, you're a white belt. What are you thinking about a blue belt for? This is a fucking journey. Never forget, that this is a journey, and the purpose of this journey is X, Y, and Z. Because the second you forget that shit, you just start you focus on things that you don't need to focus on. And you just get lost, man. You get lost. And then all of a sudden your journey, which should have been a straight shot, is now this really long, arduous, circuitous path to your goal. And that's just because you forgot. I forgot why I went to graduate school. I wanted to be a professor. And it was the year off and then getting that experience that reminded me. And I kind of had to sit back and be like, shit, this is why. Now this is what I got to do. So, yeah, man, I just forgot.
And in forgetting that, after being reminded of it, would you say that going through the doctoral program was easier than getting your master's because you had that reminder, or was that just as much of it?
1,000%, Rich. 1,000%. Arguably the workload was way more as a doctoral student. My responsibilities were way more, but it was so much easier because again, when I went back, I'm like, I kind of reassessed my master's degree. I'm like, what did I do? Okay, I did X, Y, and Z. Instead of doing X, Y, and Z, I'm going to do A, B, and C. You know, and then I just tailored I tailored everything as I went. But it's all about being it's all about being regimented and exercising prudence as well. You know what I mean? So I would write so if I had papers due at the end of the semester, like 20-page papers, I would start writing those papers at the beginning of the semester. You know, it was just about like being more disciplined. You know when they say like discipline equals freedom? That shit is fucking true too, man. That shit is true too. Discipline does equal freedom. And I'll be the first one to say that I don't particularly care for Jocko or his podcast or any of that shit.
But have you seen him with his shirt off?
Yeah. No, man. I don't buy into the whole like the fitness guru, the the motivational speaker shit. I hate that shit. I absolutely hate that shit. Airey Brothers, hear me. I hate it. I think Goggins is great.
Oh, really?
I think he's great, man. I think he's great, but I just can't stand like every video of him saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. I can't stand other people sharing that video. I can't stand other people acting as though they're some sort of like motivational guru. I can't stand that shit. That shit frustrates the hell out of me. You know what I mean? It frustrates the hell out of me. Like, I don't know. But I'll leave that as. But discipline does equal freedom, man. You could do what you want to do as long as you're disciplined enough to do it. You know? It's crazy. But yeah, man. My PhD was much easier. It was much more fun as well. You know what I mean? Much more fun. I didn't, because I wasn't worrying about getting like great grades. I just worried about learning. You know, I remembered why I was there. I love physiology. You know, I'm competent. I'm able. So as long as I just have fun and keep being inquisitive, I'll do just fine. And I did. I really did.
You said your undergrad was relatively easy, only had to really study for an hour or two, and you could ace the test. Would you say you really didn't become a student or as strong a student as you were at the end till you got to graduate school?
100%. I didn't become a student. I wasn't like a proper student until I went back to get my PhD, man. You know? That's just the truth. Like, I did everything I had to do. You know, I woke up early. If I wanted to work out, I did it early. You know, studying. I planned out my studying. I was more regimented with everything. You know, I did what I had to do and managed it much better. That's what a student is supposed to do. You know, a student's supposed to learn. Learning is really, the onus is on you as a student to learn. You know, it's not about getting good grades. It's not about getting A's on everything. I mean, it's about learning. And, you know, if you do your due diligence, you'll do just fine. But I wasn't a student, man.
My question to you is someone, you know, who's on their undergrad now, what would your suggestion be to make the most out of that experience and not take it for granted?
Okay, to not take it for granted, just remember that there's just thousands, there's millions of people out there that would kill to be in your position, right? I remember when I went to India a few years ago, this guy, we went to this like provisions market. This guy spoke like 12 languages, 15 languages. It was like ridiculous. And I'm like, man, you should go to school. And, you know, because whatever degree this guy gets, I mean, with all those languages, he could be a success at anything. And she's like, I don't have the money. You know, I don't have the money to go to school. I have to work at the family market. And it was crazy. It was a sobering experience. Like, here I am squandering this opportunity, and this guy would kill for it. So you know, you should never forget that, man. Anybody who's an undergrad, never forget that there's a million people out there that would kill for your position. But also, like, just remember why you're there. You know, remember why you're there. You're an undergrad because of what? What is it that you want to do? I always tell my students, man, it's not a very popular opinion, but I feel like if they don't know exactly what they want to do, they shouldn't be in school. And I tell some of my students that, and it sounds ridiculous, but if you think about it, like, you have one life to live, and you're going to waste this time and this money on an education that you're not entirely sure you're passionate about. That's ridiculous. Make sure you're passionate about it, and if you're passionate about it, do what you got to do. Undergrad sucks, man. It really does. It's not the best part of education, in my opinion. Like, the best part is graduate school, when you kind of like hone in on what it is that you really love, and you get to get knee deep and all the fun stuff. Like, undergraduate's just kind of this broad education where you got to take these general education courses and all this other shit, and it's not all that fun, especially if you're really passionate about something. But if you're an undergraduate, listen, you got to do it anyway. Find value in everything that you do, right? If you don't like, you have to take a statistics class, but you don't like statistics. Tough shit. You got to take it. Find value in it, because there is value in statistics. Make everything extremely personal, right? If you hate statistics, all right, what are the benefits of learning statistics? It's the ultimate bullshit detector, right? It's the ultimate bullshit detector. If somebody says something, right, you kind of use your analytical brain to say, well, this doesn't make sense based on the probability of this, that, and the other thing. If you hate chemistry, right, chemistry sucks. How can you make chemistry fun? Right? How can you make chemistry personal? Chemistry is personal, because without chemistry, there'd be no biochemistry. Without biochemistry, you wouldn't understand how the human body works. All right? Make everything personal. Everything is relative. As long as you remember that, you shouldn't have a hard time. But never forget it. Do you take any classes that you're just like, fuck, I don't want to take this?
All of them.
Like what? I don't think you should be in school, man.
You know what, Uncle Steve? I had a race gender class last semester, and going into it, I was not stoked on it. And at the end, I felt satisfied. I feel like I definitely educated myself a little bit. Definitely different things in the world that I just turn off that are out there. So at the end of that experience, I found the value in it. In the beginning, I was hemming and hawing and maybe didn't have that mindset of, taking it personal and finding the value in it. But towards the end, I had found the value in that class and had appreciation for that class.
That's crazy, man. Man, perspective is everything. It really is. It really is. And would you say, like, leaving that class, were you more, I guess, open to things, or?
I was more.
Can you?
I was more open to things and more aware of the rights that I have that I maybe don't acknowledge or pay attention to because they don't come up in my everyday life. But being in the.
Can you give me an example?
Well, being in the class, especially in this day and age, there's a lot of people in gender transitions and stuff like that. And, they like to speak for their right of identifying of this or identifying as that. And I'm just a bro, Uncle Steve. That's what I identify as being a bro, right? But, I definitely started looking into the Constitution and amendments and speech protocols and realized, why we are in this kind of climate that we are today is because a lot of kids coming up that are going through this stuff are aware of their rights. And I realized when a lot of these kids started speaking that I had no idea what my rights were. And I was ignorant to that. So being in a class, in an atmosphere that it kind of made me realize, hey, you're being super, super ignorant to this. And all these people are talking circles around you, and you can't even talk in this class because you don't even know what your rights are.
Interesting. That's awesome. I mean, it was a valuable experience then.
100%, and just made me more aware of the climate of today is way different than when I graduated high school, over 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's getting it's changing as we speak, and I mean changing radically as we speak. That's another conversation for another day, isn't it? But yeah, man, that's awesome. But that's cool that you went into a class kind of not necessarily interested in, right? And it ended up being a great learning experience. And I think every class has the opportunity to provide that for you. Every single class. But it's just about your mindset, man. If you're going to go in hooting and hollering and you're going to resist what the class has to offer, then you're not going to learn anything. It's just going to be a miserable fucking experience. And at the end of the day, you have nobody to blame but yourself, you know? And, miserable people make people miserable, right?
100%.
Like, why do you want to be a miserable cunt? Like, be cool, you know? Like, be fucking cool. That's rule number one. Be fucking cool, man.
Yeah, you know,
you don't like it.
When I went to the grocery store last night, the gentleman that was checking me out, he was like, how's your day going or whatever? And I was like, great, man. How are you? And he's like, I'm all right. And it's just like, and then also in dealing with some of my clients, like, people just don't realize what they're saying and how negative it sounds, you know. And I've been a victim of this too. And I've had people, for better or worse, you know, put the mirror in my face and show me and make me realize, like, oh, I don't even realize that I'm kind of negative right now. You know, I just don't think it's, unless, you know, like you said, no one is above getting checked. Unless someone is checking you on that, just people kind of just wallow in that sort of misery, and it just becomes their common practice, just like eating gluten, and they don't realize like how shitty they feel is because of the bread or pasta that they're eating. They've just been so used to this kind of mindset and this, you know, talk that they have, that they don't even realize that they're being negative or they have a bad attitude.
Hey, man, they're just going through the ebb and flow of life, man. You know, that's what they're doing, and it sucks. And I'm guilty of that as well. Sometimes, like, I'll be sitting on the couch, and I look at the clock, and I'm like, man, it's 2 p.m. But I did nothing for the day, you know, just one of those like real lazy days. And I'm sure everybody could relate to that. But if you think about it, I mean, how many lazy days do you have in your life? If you were to add up all the hours in your lazy day, like, I wonder, I'd be so scared to know how many days, how many, maybe weeks, months, years, you know, that I've spent just fucking off. And when you consider how little we have on this earth, it's kind of upsetting, you know? And I, you know, when you go through the ebb and flow of shit, like, days are just like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, when I fucked off until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I didn't realize the time. Like, I was just going through the motion, man. I didn't realize that I was in this fuck off state. You know what I mean? I didn't realize I was like wasting my day. I didn't realize I should appreciate the day. And that person's the same way, man. The dude's checking you out at the store. He's ringing you in, and that's it, man. But I just don't think like his day's okay. His day, he's having a day that's better than most people, because most people, again, man, they don't even have a place to live, don't have running water, don't have electricity. So this motherfucker is living like a king, relatively speaking. But he doesn't know that, man. It's all perspective. All perspective. Sometimes you just got to remember, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like...
Go ahead.
I feel like the theme of this conversation is never forget, man. You know? Never forget. Be it the goal, be it that life is temporary, just never forget, man. Always be aware of everything in the moment.
100% in the moment. And you just touched on one of the things I was going to bring up. You know, one of the most, and you've said a couple very profound things to me in our time as friends, but one of the most impactful things I think you've ever said to me was back in 2011 when you came down for the 20 and 24, and you got out of the car, and we were, you know, checking back in, and one of the things you said, how are you doing? And you said, better than most. And Jimmy and I, that has stuck with us since that day, and I say it all the time to people because it really is a good reminder that no matter how shitty you think your day might be, or how bummed out you might be about something, a bad relationship or an argument or whatever, at the end of the day, you live in America, you have a roof over your head, you have running water, you have all these things. So yes, really, I am better than most. Even and I've had some females that have picked up on it, and they're like, well, you always say that, I can tell that there's something wrong when you say better than most. And my response to that is, well, even if I am having a bad day or I'm feeling a little blue or down, I am better than most. I have income, I have food in my refrigerator, I have shoes on my feet, I have a roof over my head, I have running water, I got coffee today that I paid for. Like, there's so many lists. The gratitude list is so long. So yeah, I mean, that better than most comment that you made has stuck with us since 2011.
Hell yeah, man. I'm glad because it fucking stuck with me as well. It's crazy. Listen, man, we're sitting here recording a podcast. Think about everything that needs to be in place, right? Like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Think of everything that needs to be in place in order for you to be okay, to have the ability to record a podcast. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. We all have so much, and that's not to say that we shouldn't embrace our lows, because we should. We're human beings. We're not robots. But it's important that we never forget that, man. We should be grateful. We really should be grateful. Everything that I have, I wish there were a way to objectively assess friendship and family, and because I'm willing to bet that I have the greatest family, I have the greatest friends fucking ever. I'll put it up against anybody, and I think, I'm like, man, there's got to be a way to objectively assess this, because when somebody says, oh, I have the best friends, I want to pull out something that says, you see this shit? This shit says I have the best friends, I have the best family. I'm so fucking grateful every day that I have the friends and family that I do. I lucked out, man. Despite being a piece of shit when I was younger, I absolutely hit the lottery. I had the best life in the world. Best life in the world, man.
So as Richie said before, in 2011, you kind of gave us that mantra, better than most, and you've always been someone I've looked towards for that PMA, for that mindset. You were the person that really educated me on the Cro-Mags and Bad Brains and, keeping that PMA and having that attitude. And every time I've been around you, you've always had that attitude. But you just said in 2014, stuff kind of got a little dark, kind of lost track of where you were going or what the mission was. When you're starting to lose that in your daily life, how do you draw back to that PMA and keeping that better than most attitude?
Hey, man, listen, at the end of the day, I'll be the first one to admit it. Like, I go through those lows sometimes, man, and it's tough to get out. And even if, I'll say smugly, or I'll say crying with a face full of tears, that I'm better than most people, that I'll admit, even in my lowest time, that I'm still better than most people, that no matter what could happen to me as a consequence of whatever it is that I'm going through, I'm still going to be better off than a lot of fucking people out there. But it all depends on what it is I'm going through, and that will determine how, what it takes for me to get back. I was going through some shit I'd rather not talk about last December. We'll talk about it maybe next time or something. And it was bad, man. It was really bad, and it could have potentially flipped my life, quite literally. And it was really bad to the point where I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I lost a lot of weight. It was really, really stressed out, and even during this time, I would say while I was crying, I'm like, fuck, I'm still going to be better off than most people, but talking myself off of that negative ledge, man, was tough. It's really, really tough. It's really, really tough. And something that I didn't realize until that 2014 is that, man, you don't know what you're capable of doing until you're put in a situation that you kind of have to exercise everything you've ever said. Do you know what I mean? Motherfuckers are yeah, I got PMA. Well, tell me you got PMA when you're going through some shit. All right? Then I'll believe you. Show me PMA when you're going through some shit. Then we could talk. If you're having a good fucking life and you're yeah, I got PMA, everything's going to be great, fuck you. Go in the deep water. And then tell me how much PMA you have. Show me how much PMA you have. And that's something I realized in 2014. And that's something I'm very cognizant of. is like when I get in a like as I'm like approaching, the precipice where I'm about to go over into some really dark waters. I kind of like prepare myself. Do you know what I mean? I kind of look at everything that I have that I'm really grateful for. I realize that again, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? If this happens, can I deal with it? That's something that my father always said. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? Can you deal with that? And that's how I kind of like I keep as best as possible that that PMA is like, because no matter what, like, I'll be okay. No matter what, I'll be okay. Like, think about it. Like, cut my fucking leg off. I would be so pissed if I lost a leg right now. I'd be devastated. Y'all, I'm not even kidding. I would be fucking devastated. But will I be okay? 100%. I'll learn how to deal with it. You'll deal with it because you have to deal with it. And as soon as you remember that, it makes things easier. It's not to say that you're never going to experience a low. It's just it becomes less undulating, right? The lows aren't so low anymore. The peaks still remain peaks, right? They're still highs. The highs are highs, but the lows aren't as deep anymore. Never forget, man. You'll be okay no matter what, especially if you have good friends and family. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what helps me. Talks me off the ledge.
You're just putting a smile on the Airey Bros right now, just spitting your Uncle Steve knowledge and your truths. What was I gonna say?
Yo, man, living that shit, dude. I'm telling you, life is fun, man. Life's a trip. Life is a fucking trip. And I'm not trying to sound like a hippie or anything, but man, like you always learn more the hard way. At least I do. Everything I've ever learned in my life is the hard way. You could tell me to do something, and this is the right thing to do. But until I fuck up, until I'm just, stuck or having an awful time or I don't understand. And I get it when I have to get it. My whole life is the hard way. And I wouldn't trade that in for anything, man. It's the best.
Yeah, those are the best lessons to learn for sure.
Yeah.
So you've been at the University of Illinois Springfield for a year now, correct?
Correct.
And semester's about to kick off here in a week or two?
Correct.
What courses are you teaching, and what does that workload look like for you?
I am teaching an Introduction to Exercise Science course, which the workload is pretty light, really light actually. Everything's already prepared, the PowerPoints and what have you. I try to make it as fun as possible. It's an introduction course, so a lot of them are going to be generally, uninterested. Right? There's going to be a great deal of disinterest. So the tough part is kind of managing interest there and making it fun and again applicable to their lives and so forth and so on. But the workload is relatively low. And then I'm teaching physiology of sport and exercise, and that's a doozy. I decided a few weeks ago to flip the classroom. So I'm in the process of recording every lecture, and it's been awful because a lecture will take me about an hour and a half to record the actual lecture, but in its entirety with like fucking up and all this stuff, it takes me like 4 or 5 hours per video. It's disgusting. It's disgusting how like inefficient I am with this. So the prep work is heavy there. Then I'm teaching, in addition to that course, I'm teaching the 2 labs associated with the course, which are going to be, again, a lot of work. But it's cool, man. It's cool. The work, it's a lot of fucking work, man. It really is. And unlike most jobs, well, it's a give and take, isn't it? Right? I don't have a 9 to 5, right? But unlike most jobs, like when I punch the clock, I don't go home and that's it. Like I don't think about work until the next day. Unfortunately, like there is no punching the clock. Like, I'm always on. Like from morning to night, I'm always on. I'm always working. So as soon as I leave campus, I go home and I work. And if I'm on a run, I think about work and what I'm going to do, And again, sometimes it sucks, man. Sometimes I'm just inundated with work, with emails, and I'm like fucking stressed out. And then I remember, like, first of all, like, how many people have a PhD? How many people could work at a university and like have the best job in the world? I have summers off, right? And also, I love this shit. Like, you have to remember, like, you love this shit. I have to remember that. I have to remind myself that I'm absolutely passionate about education, about physiology. And when I do, I'm just like, oh, this shit's easy then. You know, it makes it more fun. Workload.
Do you think that that reminder is just getting too lost in life and caught up in the workload, where you kind of have to pull yourself away from it and remind yourself, hey, this is what I put in all that work for?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, man, it's always about why you choose to do the things you do, right? I chose to be in education because, one, I absolutely value education. I absolutely value mentorship, because that together is why I'm here today. It was one professor taking the time to speak to me, you know, about things that I was interested in. You know, I'm essentially I'm an amalgam of the experiences and from a shit ton of people, right? The advice from a shit ton of people. That's what I am, and I value that so much. And I have to remember that, again, man, like, it's overwhelming, but the juice is worth the squeeze, man. It fucking sucks, right? But, man, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Education is important. The students are important, and sometimes you got to work 12 hours a day. And you get lost in it because an email comes in, you respond, and then two come in, and you're just like, fuck this. And then you got to step out. I have a Post-it on my desk, and it says, remember that you love this. You know, remember that you love this. Remember why you chose to be a professor. Because I get lost in it, man. You have to remind yourself. We're only human, man. We're only human. We're not robots. We can't be programmed to be positive all the time. You know, we're going to experience some shit, and how we deal with it defines us. But as long as you remember why you're doing what you're doing, and it'll make the lows less low.
And I remember the last time I had John, you said, don't trust the people that are happy all the time. There's something wrong with them. So, it's not natural.
100%, man. They're fucking liars. Or they're like a sociopath or something. I don't fucking know, man. You know, like, anybody who's happy all the time, like, get lost. Like, you could be positive, that's one thing. But if you're super happy all the time, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, you know, the world is a crazy, crazy, crazy dark place sometimes. And sometimes I find it difficult to be extremely positive. And I find it difficult not to be misanthropic. You know, you just got to remind yourself, man. You got to remind yourself.
So speaking of some of those reminders, one thing we like to ask people on the podcast is what their daily practice is. What do they kind of do to kind of hone themselves, bring themselves back to center? Do you have any daily practices to kind of help you get that PMA on the reg?
Yo, I want to say yes. I do. I want so bad for your podcast. I want to say yes, but again, this is the reality of this is the reality, right? I don't. I absolutely, positively don't. And if I had to say, pick one practice, it's just writing things down and putting them in places where I am most frequently, either on my computer or on my desk. Because I need to, when I'm about to be caught in shit, I need to be able to step up, step away, and see something that you know, that will remind me to stay focused on the goal. Never forget the agenda. You know, I have to see it, because when I get inside myself and when the gears start turning and shit starts becoming really dark, like, the machine is on, you know? The machine is on and it's going to run. Unless I see something that triggers another response, I'm fucked, man. So my daily practices, not really. Generally, like, my days are great every single day, man. I work an awful lot and it's stressful, but every day, my days are great. Right now in the summer, I go to the gym in the early afternoon for an hour, and then I go train Jiu Jitsu for 2 hours. In between that, I'm reading, I'm studying, or I'm preparing lectures. But can you beat that? It's
Nope.
the best life, dude. This is exactly what I signed up, right?
Living the best life.
Honestly, man, I have like a life that's Instagrammable for the most boring people, you know? Yeah, man, it's tough to remind yourself to practice. it's tough to remind yourself when your days are good, you know. But it's having the plan, you know. It's like a contingency plan, or it's like a disaster plan, you know. It's unlikely that a warhead is going to drop, but when it does, you got to be ready. And when it does, you got to look to the plan, you know. What do you do in the event of a warhead? Well, in the event of an emotional warhead, I look at my reminders, man. I post-its. It sounds corny, but shit, writing things down it's been tremendous, man. It really is.
What are some of those reminders?
Oh man, just never forget. You know, really, just never forget. I know it's redundant and I sound like a broken record. Never forget. Never forget means a lot of things to me. Never forget, like I have the best family and the best friendships, man. I have the best job in the world, and shit's gonna suck. Never forget that shit is gonna suck sometimes, but you'll be okay. Never forget all the shit that I've been through in graduate school. Never forget all the shit I've been through in my 20s. You know, never forget you lost a parent. Never forget any of it, man. Because look where I'm at. Look where I'm at, dude. I had the best. I had the best, man. Fuck. I have the best. I'm so happy. Sometimes I can cry. Like right now, I'm on the verge of tears because I'm so happy. You know, I have the best. I have the best, dude. And I can never forget that, because as soon as I forget that, I'm fucked. You know, man.
So speaking of that path, you know, you just mentioned never forget where you came from, everything you've been through to get to where you are at this point of being a professor. Now, is that the end goal, or is there other things beyond that, or other goals you have in your professional life that you're still striving for?
Yeah, I mean, the role of a professor is never ending, right? There's an end game, and that's to educate and influence, and it'll never end because there's a new cohort every semester. There's a new group of faces. You know, there's new clay, there's new wet clay, and you know, you just hope that, you know, what you do helps mold them into something that's you know, worth remembering, or into a great professional, you know, that someone looks up to in the future. So there's always that, and that's never ending. I have my research agenda that at times feels never ending as well. But yeah, that's another goal. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. And one thing you said is the workload is tremendous and is a lot as a professor. Is it more than your postgrad? The same? Did that postgrad pretty much amp you up and get you ready to be a professor and take that workload on?
Yes and no. In graduate school, there was way more work that needed to be done. You know, way more work that needed to be done. Graduate school teaches you how to plan things accordingly and how to work more efficiently. Does it teach you to be a great professor? No. That's something that, you know, it takes experience. You know, like I too am a wet piece of clay, and my students don't know it, but they mold me. You know, every experience, good and bad, like make me a better professor. You know, so graduate school, there was way more work. And you know what? Maybe there wasn't more work. Maybe it was just the work that I had to do in graduate school. A lot of it I didn't want to do. Like I didn't want to. Like I love physiology. Pathophysiology is great, but writing a 10-page or 15-page paper on osteoporosis wasn't something I was thrilled about. You know, so I had to again, doesn't matter what you want, it's what you got to do. You know, I had to just put my head down and write this fucking paper I hated. So maybe the workload wasn't as much as it is now that I think about it. But I think what makes my job easier relative to graduate school is that I love what I do, and then I never forget that I'm here to do X, Y, and Z. I'm here to educate and to influence and to, you know, change the trajectory of for students like my professors did for me. So it makes the work much easier to digest. Graduate school was just especially towards the end, all those papers I didn't want to write, you know, the drag.
You mentioned you're following your passion and you're doing what you love, but you also mentioned that you have a class that's very broad, kind of like an introductory class, and there may be students in there that, that may be not be there where they're going in terms of towards their degree, and they're just in there to fulfill a requirement. How do you handle some of those kids where you just know that they're fucking off?
I don't take it personally. That's something that's something that a lot of people have told me, like friends and family have told me. But it wasn't until recently when I went to speak to somebody. They said the same thing. Like you can't take it personal. What's going on in the classroom for them. It's not necessarily you. They got a lot going on outside of the classroom. They might not be interested in it, and that's fine. So I try not to take it personally. But as long as they listen, if they want to fuck off, that's fine. But as long as they're professional, right? There are expectations. For each student, there's expectations, and I expect them to be respectful, and not just my time, but other students' time. But I mean, if they're being just like, insubordinate, or if they're being a distraction, then I'll ask them to leave. I'll tell them to get the fuck out of here.
You ever break out the shore style?
No, man, I haven't yet. I hope I never have to. I'm also trying to. This is new for me. I'm also trying to remind myself to have the guts to be disliked. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of fucking balls to be okay with being disliked and being hated. And that's something I'm currently working on right now.
How do you go about that?
Honestly, it's conviction, man. It's conviction. Like, I know what I believe. Everything I put into place, I believe in it, and I'm committing to it. And then when you believe in something and you commit to something, not everybody is going to be. Not everybody is going to receive that very well, right? It's not always going to be well received universally. There are going to be students that are just like, "Fuck this dude, I can't stand him," and that's okay. You know what I mean? That's okay. Oh, this is the worst professor ever. He's an asshole. Whatever, man. This student is going through their own shit. I don't take it personally, but I know better, right? I have my PhD. I know better. And sometimes you got to do things and people don't like, not everybody's going to like it. And I have to be okay with being hated. I have to have the guts to commit to something, and not have to worry about being hated. Do you know what I mean?
Good or bad, you're still talking about me.
What's that?
I said, good or bad, you're still talking about me.
Yeah, right. Well, as long as it's not bad and it's to the chair or the dean. But yeah, again, man, like having the guts to be disliked is something is an attribute I always admire in the people that I looked up to, And I realized, and this stems from when I was like 16 years old. I realized that I've kind of adopted this kind of like people pleaser attitude, I don't like to, like, I'm very confrontational, like, not necessarily physically, but like, if someone's doing something stupid, I'd be like, yo, motherfucker, like, I don't agree with that, you shouldn't do that, whatever, I don't mind being confrontational, but I try to avoid confrontation as much as possible, because I know how I am. I have anger issues, and I feel as though, like, if I can create a situation that's always on the up and up, right? If I could somehow circumvent having to be confrontational, thereby circumventing an issue, I'll do it. And in that, and through that, I've become like this, kind of like this people pleaser. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to fucking fight anybody, and I don't want to lose my cool, and then I come off like a brute, or I come off like a Neanderthal, Like, I don't want to be angry anymore. But I also have to have the courage to be disliked. Y'all know this is like a therapy session for me, right?
Dude.
Us too, bro.
Man, we got to do this like monthly or something.
Yeah, man. Dude, never forget, man. Never forget.
Yeah, you might have given me those "you're wrong, motherfucker" talks before, and I appreciate those. So I appreciate that side of my Uncle Steve, and never lose sight of that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. See what I mean? Like, fuck, I have the best friends, man. You know, your friends should make you a better person. You know, and that's, man.
My friends look out for me like family, dog.
Yeah, man. Fucking H2O. All right, a side question here. What is the last song that you listened to? Both. Start with Prince James. The last song you listened to was what?
Yo, I'm going to get it up right now, but I had my PMA playlist on before I got here. I think I might have went a little douchey before I got. Oh, so no, I didn't. I had
Post Malone.
Nope. I had our buddy. I was listening to Sat Song, our buddy Drew McManus, who's been on the podcast, and he's gonna be on an episode coming up. I was listening to a song by his band Sat Song called "So Far."
That's what's up. Rich, what do you got?
I was listening to the newest song that came out, that Tool just put out last week, because I was using it for the intro that I was recording for the podcast that I just put out today.
You like that new Tool song?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I really like the beginning part. You know, like as I'm getting more and more woo woo and trying to be more spiritual and not being angry. You know, that kind of meditative, ceremonial type of intro kind of resonates with me. And then last night I was out, went to kind of go out for a casual run, and then I was like, let me put on some Tool, and then it ended up turning into a hammer fest, and I just was crushing miles until I basically had to stop and turn it off and put something else on so I could catch my breath.
No shit. Awesome, man.
What were you listening to?
The last song I was listening to was Call of Cthulhu by Metallica.
All right.
Which, if you haven't heard it or if you don't remember it, I highly suggest you listen to it. It's an instrumental. It's fucking awesome. It's off of Ride the Lightning. It's awesome. The end. Period.
That's going to be your intro song when we put this episode out.
That's what's up, man. I love that track, man. But yeah, I was listening to that. I have like a Metallica playlist, and that just so happened to be on when I called you folks.
So I love that.
What's up?
I love that you brought up music, because that was one of the questions I had written down for you. What are you listening to these days? What new music are you listening to that the Airey Bros fans need to check out? What old music do the Airey Bros fans need to be check out? All of Uncle Steve, because you're always someone who I appreciate your music taste.
All right. I love music questions, man, and I appreciate it. So, new music I listen to, I usually start with, like, songs. I'll usually hear a song somewhere, somehow, and then I'll end up, like, sound hounding it and getting it. So, like, this is one band called La Patu, or I forgot the name of it. I'll share it with you. The album is really, really good. Really good. I revisited Cro-Mags. The Cro-Mags discography just came out on Spotify, so I've been bumping a lot of old school hardcore, like Age of Quarrel from the Cro-Mags, Urban Discipline by Biohazard. If you love hardcore, like good New York hardcore, Biohazard, Urban Discipline is a must. What else have I been listening to, man? Life of Agony. Listening to like early Tool stuff, like Opiate, and what was their first album called?
Undertow.
Undertow, yeah. I was listening to Undertow, Red Hot Chili Peppers, the Black Dahlia Murder, man, a bunch of that stuff. And I think the last one, there is an artist. So I got to find out her name. I believe she's like a Japanese pianist, but she just did an album, or just released an album covering like Philip Glass's music, and I think it's called Mishima, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So I've been bumping that a lot. Man, what else have I been listening to? Shit.
What do you put on when you just want to dance?
When I want to feel like it's like a jerky boy thing. I just want to dance, you fucker. When I just want to dance, I don't know what it feels like to just want to dance. Like if I want to you know what I mean?
But don't you remember that moment at the sawmill?
Oh my God! How am I fucking forgetting that, dude? How am I forgetting that? Does the world know about that story?
I think they're about to.
Dude, the best, yo. You went by yourself. You went by yourself, dude. Listen, the just want to dance moment is your shirtless Joe Rogan moment.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Moment, dude. Holy shit. Yo, oh man, the world's got to know. You just went there by yourself, right? Were you on drugs? I assume you were.
Definitely, I wasn't there by myself. I just separated from the other people that weren't doing drugs.
I just wanted to dance. Oh man, yo, I hope the world also knows that you're the reason why I never did drugs.
Me too.
I know we talked about this the last time, but. After your cocaine talk at the table, right? We were in New York, right? After like a Rhino event.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were telling me like how low coming off of cocaine was because of that story. I never once touched cocaine or any like super hard drug, man. So again, thank you in advance.
That's what friends are for, brother.
Oh, that's terrific, man. What do you want to listen to? You just want to dance. Oh man, what are you listening to?
A little bit of everything these days, you know. We were just at a Rise festival, so Jimmy and I like to think that we're a little bit more hippie than anything else these days, but we were quickly reminded that we ain't even fucking close to being a hippie, going to a hippie festival. You know, it just, I think my mood kind of depends on, you know, determines what I listen to. I've been getting a little bit more into like punk and hardcore and that sort of stuff lately, and you know, but I've always got that fist pump in me where, you know, I'll put on a couple tracks and just dance in my room by myself.
Man, I believe it too. Go over to the sawmill by yourself.
I got moves, bro.
Oh man, that's the greatest, dude. Prince James, what are you listening to, man?
You know what? Probably a lot of stuff that will give you douche chills.
Post Malone.
Yeah, definitely some Post Malone. Been listening to New Flume. Listening to Mike Posner's new song. Been listening to Oliver Francis, a little bit of that auto-tune rap. Getting the Tool on since they're on Spotify. Always got Trevor Hall in that heavy rotation. A little Kevin Gates when I want to get my swag on and get a little poppage in.
Bitch, I'm really retarded.
Wow,
yo,
man.
I got a question for you. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the new album, on the Golden Grey album by Baroness?
I really, really love it. I do. I think I loved it more when it first came out, and now that I'm kind of revisiting it, and I'm like, okay, it's not as great as Purple, but I think it's great. I really do.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
You know what? I'm kind of the opposite. I was a little not stoked on it when it first came out, and then once I would say like last week I gave it another go, and it's growing on me again. With all their albums, I feel it takes a minute, and then once I'm into it, I'm super into it. Purple was the opposite though. Purple was like the minute I heard it, every song on it just like sang to me. But they don't put out much that I don't like.
No, I'll back that statement, man. So I heard the album before it came out because they were streaming it on like SoundCloud through like NPR or something. And that was great because it forced me to listen to the album, each track in succession. So the first, the second, third, fourth, so forth, and so on. And it kind of lent to the cohesiveness of the album, and I really like that. Like when I listen to it in shuffle, like you can get like 3 instrumental tracks in a row, and it kind of like takes away from the album. But I think if you listen to that album, it has to be, you have to listen to all the tracks in a row. And Purple was like, I mean, just the best album of 2015, like hands down. like every track on it was fucking great. You could listen to the album on shuffle and be like, everything is great, you know? This album, I think, requires you to listen to it its entirety from track 1 to however many tracks are on it. But yeah, I thought I really, really dig Golden Gray. Songs worthy of mentioning, of course, is Already Gone, and I think it's called I Do Anything. Is that it?
I believe so. I'm going to add onto that. Tourniquet's one of mine as well.
Oh, Tourniquet's great, dude.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. Or Cold-Blooded Angels. That's another one.
Yes.
Corny-ass name, but man, it's fucking cool. Borderlines is a great song. Yo, did I ever tell you I went to France in 2017, and I was in the Louvre, and I ran into him.
Really?
I ran into him and the bassist.
That's crazy. No, you didn't tell me that.
It took everything in me to not be like, yo, Purple is just fucking one of the best albums, because like, even though I felt that way, like I feel like a herb if I said that, you know what I mean?
I hear you.
You should have just done it in a French accent.
Oh man, yeah. Then I would have looked like an asshole, like 2 times over.
Yeah, but they would have expected it because you were French.
That's true. Oh man, I had a really bad experience in Paris this year, man.
Most people do.
What happened?
Yeah, you know, no, I just fucking didn't like it, dude, at all. Like it was dirty. The people were very unwelcoming. And again, I went 2 years ago, and it was great. Hold on 1 second, man. I'm gonna walk out of here. I went 2 years ago. It was fucking great, man. You know, it was super great. And then I went this year with my nephew, and I'm like, fucking sucks, dude. I had a miserable time. We walked into some protests, and there was this riot. So we walked through this cloud of tear gas, and then like shortly after, we watched a dude rob this old woman, and it's just fucking messy, man. And people were assholes, super assholes. But whatever. Yeah, Baroness kicks ass, man.
Yeah, little side note. I would say probably less than a month before I got my purple belt, that album came out, and then I got my purple belt, and it was funny. You know, I was thinking about it as it was coming out and how fitting it was. I was about to get my purple belt, but then I started, you know, thinking of the lyrics and what have you. It was like, wow, this is pretty deep and pretty heavy. And then in the process, 2 years into having my purple belt, that's when I got hurt and all the injury and what have you. And that album started to make a lot more sense for me. So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with that album. Obviously loving it, but a little bit of a deeper story.
Wow, that's pretty great, man. I have this really this I don't know, this strange, wonderful relationship with My Chemical Romance. Welcome to the Black Parade. When that album came out, that album came out. I believe it was in October of 2006, right after I lost my mother, and right after I had just gotten out of a relationship with this woman I was madly in love with. And I felt as though that entire album was written for me. And it's fucking corny to say, but like everything I was experiencing, it just seemed like there was a song for it. Everything that I was thinking or feeling, it just seemed like there was a song on it, on that album that like corresponded to how I was like feeling or thinking. So I don't know if it's the same as your relationship with Purple, but I definitely have this very strong, strained relationship with that album.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it. You hit it right on the head with that one.
Yeah, man. So you don't do you talk to anybody that was at 10th Planet?
Well, we had Ben Eddy on the show, so you know I've been in more contact with him as of recent, and you know every once in a while one of the guys will drop in the DMs, or I'll see something they post. Even Gio, every once in a while we'll hit each other up, but not having phone calls with anyone or going back anytime soon.
That's what's up. Are you scouting jiu-jitsu places?
Yeah, I am. It's just a matter of getting my head out of my ass and stop making excuses, to be quite honest with you.
Hey, man. That's real life, right?
Yep.
Never forget.
That's how it is, man. That's how it is. But I mean, that's awesome, man. What places are out there?
I mean, there's a 10th Planet out here. I've checked it out, but I'm not 100% stoked on it. There's some Easton schools out here. There's some Machado schools out here. There's even some catch wrestling. So there's definitely some options. It's just a matter of going in and checking them all out and not settling on the first one I go into, which I've had a tendency to do in the past. So just, there's enough to shop around. I just need to shop around and be comfortable shopping around and not worrying about signing up right away,
What do you look for in a school?
Right now,
what are you shopping around for?
I need a place where I can go and get open drills in on the reg, and that's going to work with my schedule, and I respect the instructors. Those are the biggest sticking points for me.
Okay, so the scheduling is easy to figure out.
Yeah.
Right? But the respecting the instructor thing, I mean, there's no way you can get an idea of that individual just hopping in there. There's no way you can get an idea of that individual going in there for maybe a month. You know what I mean? It's something that you kind of learn over time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
Yeah,
That's tough. But at least you have a lot of good options.
Yeah, there's options, and to be quite honest with you, Uncle Steve, because of the way I grew up wrestling and being a little accomplished on that side of things, I'm not going to say I have an ego about things. I definitely do, but I just have a certain way I think that stuff can be done and how I'm going to learn the best. And that always doesn't go with how people teach or how they structure jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is structured way differently than how wrestling is. But I know for me to get the best out of being there, I have to do way more drilling than going live, because my body can only handle so much going live. And unfortunately, I have a really strong opinion on training. So it's really hard for me to kind of bow down to that, especially when I feel like, okay, you might be a black belt and have this area down, but all my other information leads me into not thinking I know more than you, but I just have a strong opinion on how I feel about things. And because of my experience at 10th Planet Oceanside and my experience at other schools, I'm not willing to back down from that anymore, because I've backed down from that before and I've seen how that turned out. Yeah, at 10th Planet Oceanside, I learned a shit ton, but I knew 6 months before I got hurt that I had achieved everything I could achieve from that particular coach in that particular school. But being so caught up in the social side of things and kind of the hierarchy of it, I got caught up in that and I lost sight of the purpose, and that's when all the issues happen. So in finding another school, obviously I'm not going to be able to figure that out in a week or 2 weeks, but finding a home where I settle myself down in, that's something I'm highly have to consider.
Okay, you say you have a very strong opinion about how to train. What is that opinion? Would you be able to give me like a bullet point version?
Just all right. I honestly think like if there's 2 or 3 moves we're learning that day, we need to constantly be flowing those moves. I think you only really need to go, once you have your skill set, you only really need to be going live 1 to 2 days a week. And you can focus all that other time on drilling and preserving your body, opposed to every day you're going in there, you're learning 2 or 3 moves or kind of half-ass drilled, and then you go live for 45 minutes to an hour. That's great, and you're going to get way better just going live and going hard, but you're going to reach a ceiling really quick. And once you get to that ceiling, what are you going to do when you're not getting any better because you're just going hard the whole time?
Yeah. So classes there were 2 hours long?
Yeah, like an hour drill, an hour going live, yeah.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, we have hour classes, so it's like basically we only go live every class like with 10, 15 minutes left, so we get like 2 or 3 rounds in. But it's interesting. I look at jiu-jitsu just the same way I look at education, right? Like, and I think because we do 2 or 3 moves a class, I'm like, wouldn't it be more beneficial to teach 1 move and spend the entirety of the class drilling that 1 move?
Right.
Wouldn't that be more beneficial, right? Because the only way you're going to learn it is really kind of by doing it.
Over and over.
You know what
and
I
over.
mean? Yeah, and then there's information overload. There's sensory overload when you go to do like each move and remember each move.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, dude. It's crazy. And I'm like, man, there were times where like my professor would travel because he travels a lot for seminars, and one of the coaches will teach a class, and they'll go over like a basic sweep or a sweep, and then a move off of that sweep. So while it's two moves, it's one move, and then like for the remainder of the class, like 20 minutes, a half an hour, we drill that. Like that's what's up. That and specific training. Like that's how I get better. But like I get caught up in the sparring, man. I love it. Everyone's like, "Hey, man, you want to roll?" And I go in like today, open mat. I'm gonna go in, but with the intentions of drilling for at least 45 minutes. But then somebody will be like, "Hey, man, you want to roll?" And I'm gonna be like, "Yes, I do." And then I'll get off track and lose my focus. But that's interesting. Have you ever butted heads with any of your coaches? Or
every single one of them.
I mean, me.
Really?
I mean, me and Gio always. But it wasn't necessarily me going up to him and voicing like, "Hey, like we do the same thing every day." It was more someone else asking me or him asking me, and then not liking the answer that I would respond with. But like I said, I don't think we should be doing the same thing every day. I think every day should be different, and you should be tapping into a different stimulus every day to get the benefits of being on the mat every day. If you're just doing the same thing every day, you're just going to reach a level and then not get anywhere from that. And I've seen that in other avenues in my life. That's why I'm so passionate about that and so outspoken about that. But yeah, I've definitely butted heads with coaches.
So what do you mean the same thing every day? What is it that they do?
So if you're going in every day, you're drilling for an hour, and then you're going live for an hour. And pretty much that looks one or two different ways. If they were going live, it was, guard pass drill, and then maybe at the end doing like 2 or 3 matches. Or you were doing Eddie Bravo overtimes where someone was on your arm or someone was on your back, and you were doing that for an hour. And, that gets taxing on the body when you're defending arm bars for 45 minutes. You need to do that because that's part of the competition, and that's part of getting better at submission-only grappling. But over time, doing that for 2 weeks straight, nothing live, your neck, your arm, everything's going to be beat up. So why not go in one day, work on certain live positions? You start off in other live positions, you do that. Other days you go in and you just wrestle, or other days you go in and you just work on getting someone off your back, or you work on holding on to someone's back, opposed to just doing the same type of live situations every day.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so you're talking about like position training. I believe we call that specific training. The same shit, right?
Yeah.
So you get in a position like if we're gonna work, side mount escape, or regaining guard from side mount. So everybody's gonna start in side mount, and then you got to work your way out of it. And we just do that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we switch. And that's just important, man. That's just important.
100%, and that was just part of kind of what I learned from wrestling and what I've learned from Jiu Jitsu, and kind of putting them together and kind of having how I see a class can be structured. And that's a hard thing too, wanting to be a teacher and being at a school where you're not in the hierarchy, so you can't be a teacher. And I am convinced that teaching Jiu Jitsu makes you way better at Jiu Jitsu.
Wow, never thought about that. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, because
I don't see it because I can't see it because I'm a white belt. So I don't. I certainly don't have the experience.
Just think about when you're trying to structure a class, right? Just to teach your exercise class, right? You have certain points you have to go over. You have to outline it, right? So if you have to outline a class based on a certain move, you're going to look at that move way different for when it comes into your jiu-jitsu game.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
So, Uncle Steve, I could talk to you all day about jiu-jitsu and life, but we got 2 minutes. We've crushed this time. I'm pretty stoked on it. So before we get you out of here, there's anything that the people need to know, anything you want the world to know, put it out there now.
Airey Brothers are the best. Some of the best humans I know. And never forget the purpose. Stay true to the journey. Don't get lost in the sauce. And, man, I don't know, man. Stay up. That's it, dude.
Remember that you love this.
That's it, man. Never fucking forget. Never forget you love it, man.
I love it.
Never.
Feel like I got a little bit of
All right, dog.
pep in my step. Maybe I had a couple shots of espresso served up by Uncle Steve. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Yeah, I definitely feel fired up and motivated. So we appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day. Hope you have a wonderful jiu-jitsu practice this evening. And yeah, let's try to do this more often, my friend.
Oh yeah, man. I appreciate it, man. I'm amped for jiu-jitsu right now. So I'm putting my contacts in right now, and I'm about to head over there. Fired up.
Hell yeah, Uncle Steve. I'm stoked. I'm going to be skipping on the trail on the way home. You better believe that.
That's what's up. All right, y'all. Be safe, man.
You too.
Be
Much
epic.
love.
Later, brothers.
Later.